well above that.
It's crazy. So for me, there's this, it's probably for anyone, whether it be 10 or...
Welcome to Words of Whiskey. I am Aaron, the host, and today we have a special guest.
Hi, my name is Larry.
Exactly. Okay. Me and Larry, we met about a year and a half ago.
Sounds about right.
Playing softball,
Yep.
of all places.
Yep.
A few groups. Our team was horrible.
Yes, we were.
But we had a blast.
Yes,
right?
we did. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Which is, we did also win some games, so maybe not the worst team.
Like maybe two.
A couple.
So what we decided to do is we are going to try some different bourbons, some tasting. So we have one of each from 3 different distilleries in Kentucky. So one, we've got the Weller Antique 107. It's a wheated bourbon, very, very popular, hard to kind of find. So it's kind of a unicorn bottle in a lot of ways.
Very cool.
So this one is a wheated bourbon. From my understanding, it tastes very similar to a Pappy, about a Pappy 10-year. So then we've got an old Fitzgerlad, bottled in bond, 100 proof, 9-year-old. Also a collector's kind of unicorn type bottle. It's somewhat easier to find than Weller, but probably quite a bit more expensive. And then to finish it out, we have the Four Roses small batch. So this is a 90 proof bourbon. So we've got spicy, kind of medium spicy, and then not quite as much.
And this is, like, people can find this. This
one you can find any store.
Right.
Easy to find.
So perfect comparison, right?
Yeah, so this one is, this one's a little bit harder to find, but not quite as expensive. This one's really expensive, still pretty hard to find, and this one's like, you can find it anywhere.
Common.
And these are 3 different distilleries. So this one is Buffalo Trace Distillery, this one's Heaven Hill, and this one's just Four Roses.
Buffalo does Pappy, like that's the same, right?
Yeah, so kind of weird. Pappy actually worked, was a salesperson for Weller.
Right, back in the
day, yeah. So these were the first wheated bourbon. So, and he liked wheated bourbon. So when he made his, and then his grandson, whatever, kind of made more of the distillery, entered some competitions, and won an award, and then it just blew up to the point where it's impossible to find it.
Crazy.
So these are the 3 we're going to try. So we're going to taste them. This is actually my first time trying this one and this one.
Wow.
So this will be my first time as well.
It's the moment.
Exactly, it's the moment. So we'll see what we pick up and everything. These 2 are wheated bourbons, and this one's a rye. I know wheated bourbon is kind of the craze right now, but actually, normally, I love that sound.
I love the look.
Yeah. So more, I prefer the rye bourbons myself.
Interesting. Remind me how old this is, by the way.
So this one is it says, I believe this one's usually, this one doesn't have a age signature, but from my understanding, Weller's, the antiques, are generally at least 10 years old and older. For me, I like to keep the bourbons between 8 and maybe 13 years, just because I think, especially depending on where they're aged from, I'm just going to pour a little bit in each one because they're going to, otherwise we won't be able to walk out of here.
Yeah, and I need that actually.
I think that is a pretty good age because you get some of these really old ones. So you get like a Pappy 23-year-old, which is a really expensive bottle. MSRP might be like $300. However, if you find it, it's probably worth well above that. Oh, I love that sound.
It's crazy. So for me, there's this. It's probably for anyone, whether it be 10 years or 23 or 20. But the idea that that's been in there, right,
for that long,
no one's had access to it.
Well, the thing is like it's in the once you put it in here, it's not going to age any longer.
Yeah.
It's all aged in the barrel, and that's one of the reasons why I think between 8 and 13 years or so is perfect age for a bourbon because of the climate. The longer it sits in the barrel, it's going to get more and more and more wood flavors to it. So I kind of think not too much wood is.
You like, a little less.
A little bit less. Now, if you go to a different climate like Scotland or Ireland, it's not quite as hot. The climate is more mellow. So if you get some of their Scotches or Irish that are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and you don't taste nearly as much as the wood. It doesn't go in and out of the barrel nearly as much as, just say, in Kentucky or, some of the, high drastic difference in climate. So, bourbon has a unique history. Because you have the different cultures, you have the different group of people immigrating from Europe and so forth. And they brought their love of Irish whiskey, and all of their distillates came from barley. That's not as easily available here, so they take what they could distill that grew easily here. And when they kind of migrated down more south, the easiest thing to grow was corn.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that they kind of did. They had all this excess grain, so they had a lot of corn, they had a lot of barley, and they had a lot of wheat. Not a lot of barley, sorry, a lot of rye, and a lot of wheat. So they kind of distilled it that way. And then they aged it in their, in barrels and so forth. A lot of it they would drink, straight up. A lot of it was supposed to be for, medicine was the main thing.
So about during Prohibition, they were still able to sell, right?
As
medicine.
So if you got a prescription for a whiskey, you can still get it, and there are still few distilleries that are able to distill and sell it as
medicinal use.
Yeah, medicinal use, exactly. Wow. Now, it wasn't illegal to drink it, and it wasn't illegal to own it. It was illegal to actually make it for consumption for pleasure.
Sure.
And it was illegal to actually sell it.
Interesting.
Unless you got a prescription for it.
Yeah.
So, Prohibition actually probably increased drinking. It just made it underground. That's when all the speakeasies and all that kind of stuff. So it killed a lot of the smaller distilleries. So it ended up being, there's just huge distilleries that basically monopolized everything.
Interesting.
So it didn't really stop it. It just put it underground, where you had moonshiners and stuff like that, which who knows, and they would cut it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. They would add other things to it to maybe dilute it, maybe go further and so forth. And it probably made it more dangerous than actually what it
was. Oh, for sure. I mean, it's all about money, no regulation. You can do anything. You can do anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what, Al Capone and all those other gangsters, it was all about selling alcohol.
Yeah.
If Prohibition never happened, I don't think some of those people, those crime lords, would have came up.
Well, it certainly didn't work for America.
Yeah, so I'm going to try it. So this is the Weller.
I love the smell of that. I really like it.
It smells really good. It's kind of a little bit subdued, though. It's not really, really strong, especially for 107 proof.
Yeah. Yeah,
You smell the...
Yeah, for sure. You can smell this is, to me, like a smoother...
This is sweeter. This smells sweeter than this one. And this is 100 proof. And then this is the 90. And this one's spicier, but this one's probably because of the rye.
Sure.
But I can just taste it and see what I get.
I'm like almost nervous to try it.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's really good. It's sweeter than a lot of the other bourbons. It has a little bit of that caramel aftertaste flavor to it, especially on the tip of your tongue. I think it's really good. It's almost like a caramelized with raisin and a little bit of nut, like almost like a...
That's what I feel like, that nuts in there.
Yeah, it's almost like roasted peanuts. Like honey roasted peanuts.
I'll buy that. That's
the high proof until like a minute or two later, and then your inside just start warming up and expands.
Yeah, it's really nice actually. I wonder if, you get used to drinking that, you can't settle for those cheap bottles. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is very nice. Well, so I'm going to try the Old Fitzgerald, the Bottle and Bond.
I want to cleanse. I just want to really taste it.
So the question is a lot of people, they see the Bottle and Bond on there. It's always 100 proof. this, I'm not sure if you know what bottled and bond
Well,
signifies.
I did some reading, but so it just means it's checked out. It's not mixed with anything. It's aged with itself, not mixed. It's done in a certain time period.
So it's mixed. It's one season of distillate. It's always from one distillery, so it can't be mixed from other distilleries.
Yeah, they don't make their taste.
They can't source it exactly, and then it has the government stamp of approval. It's always 100%.
How important?
So 100 proof. I mean.
How important is that bottle and bond to your average person who wants a?
Now, not as much. Back in the day, the reason why the bottle and bond actually came about is to make sure that it wasn't tampered with and it wasn't diluted or other stuff added to it. Because you go to some of the saloons and sometimes it was hard to get some of this stuff.
Sure.
So they would dilute it, they would put other stuffs. It was kind of one of the very first ways the government basically made sure what was in the bottle was exactly what was intended.
Yeah.
And it does that. I mean, bourbon for quite a few years was kind of the old man's drink that they didn't. It wasn't as popular, wasn't cool, especially in the '60s and '70s, where it was all popular to be like extra skinny, you know. And so they figured the darker color would signify more. I don't know, more calories or something.
Sure.
So that's when like the really light rums, the tequilas, the vodkas, gins, and everything, way higher in popularity than whiskey, especially for bourbon, because bourbon had always kind of the signifying of an old man's drink.
Sure.
Yeah.
You ready?
I'm going.
Okay.
That's good. Wow, that's really good.
I feel it like a little.
It's more spicy.
Yeah.
It's a little more spicy, even though the proof is lower.
Yeah.
It has more oaky flavor to it. You can taste like the wheat a little bit more than you can in the Weller.
If somebody made me choose, I would choose that.
I would choose the Weller.
Really?
Yeah.
You prefer that?
I prefer the Weller.
I kind of like that spice. I like how it kind of punches on my tongue a little bit.
It's this one's oilier. It coats your tongue a lot more.
Yeah, I feel that for sure.
And I kind of do like that.
I do.
I do like that. I think it's hard.
Well, both are excellent for sure.
It's hard to say which one I would prefer to have in my, as I say, a daily drinker, which one I would want to turn to.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to say either of those. They're both excellent.
Oh, that's without a doubt.
And because there's a lot of different wheated bourbons. I mean, I know Maker's Mark is wheated bourbon. Larceny is another wheated bourbon. And the flavors are okay-ish, but I wasn't like hugely sold or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like, it's all right. But then when I had my first taste of Pappy, I'm like, oh, maybe I do like those wheated bourbons.
I mean, this is like, that's just doing.
But that's really good. And the bottle is fantastic. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
No,
yeah, that's one you can use as a decanter afterwards. And what I like a lot is, so you take the first sip and you get some flavors, and then you sit there for a second, you take the next sip, and it opens up and you taste some other different things. It's like, oh, I taste a little bit of peach, or a little bit of caramel apple, maybe a little popcorn, which is, each sip you get like a little bit of a different flavor.
That's really interesting. Both so good.
Okay.
I'm sure the best I've had ever. Those are definitely the two best bourbons I've ever had.
Okay, they're really good. They might actually rival some of my favorites.
They're tasty.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to say. Okay, let's go for the budget.
All right.
The budget. 4 Roses.
All about rye.
See, after tasting these ones, it's watered down. It's still good. I like 4 Roses. Four Roses is an easy, defined. It's always going to have a good flavor. It's really high in the corn content. It's like 70% corn and like 20% rye, and then the rest is going to be malted barley. So it's a little bit more on the rye, so you get a little bit of that licorice, black licorice flavor to it.
I have to say it is very drinkable.
Yeah.
Right? That's just something you could just pour and enjoy and drink.
Yeah, and it's
Not sure
not
I've
very
had it.
expensive. What's that?
I'm not sure I've had it, but
I've always liked.
It's really like, yeah, it's easy to see. Like, yep, I want that on hand.
Yeah.
For any old
It's
time.
easy to find. It's not expensive. It's not going to break the bank, but it's still very enjoyable and very easy. Now, if I had to rate it between these other two, these are
Sure.
drastically better. But it's hard because is it a perceived because they're more expensive? So you expect it, and your mind makes you think it's
For me,
more.
the thing that's hard is like how much of this and how long can I have this on hand compared to this? Like, so this is, for me, this is an experience where this might be a something that's, a staple.
Yeah, this one you can pull out all the time. You
Yeah.
enjoy it.
By the way, thanks. I don't know
Yeah.
if I really said thank you.
No, thank you for coming over.
I feel really like that's such a cool experience to be able to try it.
Yeah, and it's nice to open up, a few unique bottles.
I really like,
Oh,
I mean, it's not.
so I've been sipping this one for a while, going back to this one. I'm like, oh, I don't care. This one I've always liked.
That's what I just did. I was just going to say that. Like being able to contrast is such a real pleasure to be like, oh yeah. Whereas for me, I mean, you may have a better palate and a better memory, but like if I drank this and then the next week this, maybe I wouldn't get it. But having them side by side here
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, so
well, no one can really go back. Oh, okay. I went back to the Weller. This is my favorite.
really, you just go for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have my last taste of Weller. Here it goes.
Yeah, I think if I had to rank them to be exactly how they are, 1, 2, 3. It sounds like you're going 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's how I would feel. This does something special for me.
Well, that's good.
Do I understand? Is it true? Bourbon is American, right?
Yes.
Like, so other places in the world also want these drinks.
Yes. So bourbon is definitely American. You can't distill a 51% corn whiskey, which bourbon is, and you can any of the other 49% can be anything it wants to be. It could be wheat, it can be even oat, it can be rye, it can be barley, as long as it's 51% corn, and it has to be aged in new oak.
Right. You can't reuse anything.
It has to be American new oak.
See, so the old Fitzgerlad. That's gonna be my last walkout.
Man, that Weller is just fantastic. I will.
So good. That's so good.
Maybe I'll have to send you home with a little,
No.
little bit more of that.
Even more than generous. But I mean, that's really.
I'm keeping the bottle. You might have a small little pour, but
so you drink whiskey, you don't just drink bourbon, right? Do you prefer bourbon? Is that like what
My favorite is actually Irish.
Really?
Irish whiskey is my favorite. Now, if I had to go to a second favorite, it would be bourbon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so,
Very educational.
great. Well, I appreciate you having you over. So I'll close the episode there. So thank you for joining us. Please like and follow, subscribe. And if you have any questions or if you want us to try anything, please send me a message. And I would love to hear it and love to hear your feedback. That was Works Whiskey.
Pleasure, really a pleasure.
It was
hey,
my
and
pleasure.
do follow, right? Like, good person here, shares with his friends, and, works hard and does his stuff. So do give that follow. You just click, right? There's no cost.